All right, so without further ado, we're gonna kick it off. And the first in line will be Dirk Lechtenberg. Dirk usually doesn't need any introduction because I'm sure you know Dirk already. If not, some key information about Dirk. He is in the cement industry for more than 30 years. Maybe even a bit more. And throughout all these 30 years, he has been working on alternative fuels. First in the Beckum area of Germany on an engineering company, and then later on, very fast, developed his way into alternative fuel processing and RDF production. And Dirk is also very much known to most of you probably as the publisher of a book, a special book on alternative fuels, which has become some sort of standard in the cement industry. So we're very happy to have Dirk here today, and I'd open the floor for Dirk to make his introductory remarks. Please welcome Dirk Lechtenberg.
Hello. Thank you very much, Matthias, for the introduction. Yes, I'm working in the cement industry since almost 35 years. I started as young engineer in a cement plant, a small private-owned cement plant, which was the first in the world which was processing municipal solid waste into refuse-derived fuels. At that time, we named it fuel from waste. Nowadays, it's named alternative fuels. Sounds even better. I'd like to start or to show you a few slides about my view about new developments in alternative fuels. First of all, everybody meanwhile knows what are alternative fuels. So alternative fuels are mainly processed wastes from municipal solid waste, from hazardous waste, from sewage sludge, agricultural waste, biomass, which have a certain calorific value and which can support the use of fossil fuels. Why do I say support? Because it's very difficult to operate a cement plant 100% on solid alternative fuels. When you look at the cement industry in some Western countries which have a long experience in using alternative fuels, means 35 years, they have reached substitution rates of 70–80%. That means 70–80% of the heat demand in the cement plants are provided by so-called alternative fuels. Still, the last 20–30% are fossil fuels. In Europe, mainly coal or lignite, so very dirty fuel. And there are some new developments to even substitute this last 20% by very homogenized, stable alternative fuels. And we are operating a facility in the north of Germany with a capacity of 100,000 tons per year, where we process mixed waste, high calorific valuable waste, into a pellet, and the pellet is further grinded if it is used as the main burner of a cement kiln to substitute this remaining 20–30%. But this is advanced use of alternative fuels. Let's start from the beginning. When you look at the substitution rate in Europe, last year I think we have reached 50% substitution rate in Europe. And we recently delivered a study to the European Investment Bank with some predictions about the use of alternative fuels or RDF in Europe, in the EU 27. And we assume that within the next 5 years, we will reach 80% substitution rate overall Europe. The current tonnage which is used is around 10 million tons. So 10 million tons of waste are processed into alternative fuels, substituting fossil fuels and reducing the fossil fuel emissions by around 3.5–4 million tons. Why around? Because if you look at alternative fuels, alternative fuels are not CO2 neutral. Only the biomass content, the biogenic content, which is in Europe at an average of 30-35%, can be used to reduce your fossil carbon footprint. To give you an idea about the heating value, this 10 million tons of RDF have a heating value of around, we are here in the Middle East, so we are calculating in barrel. These are around 24 million barrels of oil, which can be saved or which are currently saved in Europe by using alternative fuels. 24 million barrels sounds big, but we have some participants from Saudi Arabia, and you know in Saudi Arabia the daily oil exploration are 10 million barrels, so Saudi Arabia needs a bit more than 2 days to deliver the fuel which is currently replaced by the whole European cement industry with RDF. Another topic, biomass. As I mentioned before, the biogenic content, the biomass content in typical RDF is only around 30-35%. So cement producers, especially in Europe, trying to increase the biomass content, partly by even using imported wood pellets from the US, from Canada, which is not sustainable. However, they're also trying to use local available agricultural waste and biomass to increase the biogenic content to reduce the carbon footprint. With a current CO2 price of, I think, 85 euro per ton today, this will be a significant saving in CO2 emission costs, especially if you look that at 2026, I think you mentioned, the allocation for the CO2 certificates will be reduced. So the cement plants in Germany actually, or in Europe, actually have to pay if they exceed their allocations, and these are very high costs. So a lot of cement plants trying now to switch from typical waste-derived fuels or refuse-derived fuels to more biomass-derived fuels. Last but not least, very important, especially for these regions, and we have currently a few projects where cement producers thinking to use a new technology by additional combustion chambers. So by modifying the calciner, by adding a separate combustion chamber, like a hot disk or the step combustor Prepol from ThyssenKrupp Polysius or the pyro rotor from KHD. Why? With such technologies, cement producers have the possibility to use coarser grain-sized waste-derived fuels with a lower calorific value, which are not very homogeneous, even with a higher moisture content, and can substitute fossil fuels significantly in a much simpler way than the standard way which we are doing, for example, currently in Europe. We are taking the waste, screening it, classifying it, separating all the metals, crushing it down to 20-30 millimeter, or in our new plant even to 3 millimeter. These are significant costs which can be saved by a one-time capex spend of such combustion chamber. So I think this is my current view on the developments in alternative fuels, and I'm sure we will have a few questions later on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dirk, very much for this introduction. We're going to hand over to our next panelist in a moment. Just maybe one remark regarding the biofuels. This is really important in terms of reducing the carbon footprint. The well-known German Cement Producers Association, the VDZ, has published their roadmap towards decarbonization, and they assume that we would have to develop into 85% TSR, so that is substitution of 85% of our fossil fuels by alternative fuels, and 35% of that should be biogenic. And that gives you a feeling for how high the bar is lifted. This is not only a threat, this is an opportunity. And I think in our next presentation, given by Michael Supana from ATEC, he will also show you how the Central European cement industry, specifically the Austrian cement industry, has collected experience in ramping up their total thermal substitution rate. So our next panelist is Michael Supana. Michael is, just like everybody here on the panel, a very experienced cement guy. Started, I think, 35 years ago as an engineer for the magnesia bricklining industry, and then found into cement plant engineering and alternative fuels quite quickly. Spent a lot of his time in Southeast Asia, although being a proud Austrian. True. We might hear that. Anyway, Michael has dedicated lots of his professional career to enhancing alternative fuel usage. And I think you are going to present also some slides on the content as described by you. Please welcome Michael Supana.
Thank you very much. Basically, the most important or most essential issues were already raised by Dirk before, and I will try not to repeat, but I can have some add-ons, because Dirk was now talking about general Europe, where still the thermal substitution rate will have to be raised in the next couple of years to meet the then EU limits. We from Austria, I am, and my company is located in Austria, have in this regard one advantage. I cannot explain why now, or a few explanations are maybe there, because we have already achieved in the Austrian cement industry approximately, it's already over 80%. This slide I see here, you see on the right side, the thermal substitution rates in various industrialized countries or around the world, let's say. And this slide is from 2020, I found on references mentioned here on the slide. In the moment, it's already over 80%, the average in Austria. It is, as Dirk also mentioned before, we started also about 30 years ago. I remember Wittersdorfer Pegauer cement plant, they had a Leopold grade kiln in 1991 too. They started putting plastic in the burner, fuel from waste, they also called it. And big disasters, they had really problems, but they started in 1991-92. Under very strict observation of the local authorities, their government, universities, they had to take samples of the grass, the trees, the leaves, the soil around in the vicinity of the cement plant. For years, they collected a lot of data. How are the dioxin, furan levels increasing or decreasing? What about heavy metals, etc., etc.? And I made in 2006 or 7 at the NCB conference in Delhi a very interesting, also at this time, research and presentation finally, which was nearly repeated by at the time Mr. de Grey from Holcim. At this time, he's a long time retired, proving that using alternative fuels improved the situation. Actually, there were much less heavy metals, much less sulfur, no furan, dioxin. It was anyway only in let's say, in the noise of the measurement, but there was definitely no increase. So it turned out already in the 1995-96, alternative fuels are good for the environment, no matter now if it was at this time economic or not. In this same plant, in 2002, they started going really for larger quantities of alternative fuels and started to revamp the kiln system and change the Leopold grade semi-dry or semi-wet kiln to a 5-stage Breedler kiln with calciner, with chlorine bypass system. And within, I think, 3 months of operation in 2003, when this project started, they achieved 100% on the calciner. maybe not completely stable at the first 2-3 years, but basically they could run it on 100% already after a couple of months. But I also must say they had already a very good homemade solution for the preparation of alternative fuels, which they still partly do. They still have now, because I come to that point also, because now 20 years later, this plant was maybe together with one plant in Germany, as Dirk also mentioned, the first plant achieving 2022, last year, 100% thermal substitution rate in the kiln. That means 100% on the calciner, which they had already for years, many years, but also they were always on 80-85% until 2020, 21, and then it started increasing. And now they achieve 100%. Admittedly, they use for the main burner, of course, mainly raw waste from industrial waste. It's not really MSW with a lot of organic and biogenic contents, not too much paper, no paper, nearly no paper in there, etc. So it's very good fuel, but anyway, they achieve it and it's possible. So why the rest? I mean, some other countries in Europe are quite close. Central Europe, as you can see on this slide, is also going the right direction. Rest of the world is far behind. Particularly visible is that the USA and also Japan, for instance, are far behind. Even they started in Japan also more than 20 years ago using alternative fuels, but they're still on a level, I think, below 10% or 12%, I don't know exactly. For sure, one reason is that the public sector, the government in Austria, is extremely, let's say, supporting this, forcing it and also supporting it, but also by giving subsidies, government funding, by government subsidies, because we pay, it's actually subsidies, it's not donation, we pay all for waste disposal. Every household in Austria has to pay, in average, you can say per person, in the whole population of Austria, a small country, only 9 million population, but every head in the country pays in total, including industrial waste, everything calculated approximately 180 euros per year, per head, for waste disposal. If you add up this, we come to about 2.5, in total, the number I just found this morning, 2.5, Austrian government spends 2.5 billion euros on waste disposal. And quite some interesting part, let's call it this, it's by far not the largest part, but quite some interesting part of this is going into RDF and SRF for the cement industry. So our cement plants still get paid to take, even from RDF producers or from waste processing companies, they still get paid to take the product, to take the fuel. In case of lower quality calciner fuel, we don't have really very low, usually most plants are using medium quality, I would say around 15 megajoule per kilogram, somewhere in this range, 15 to 18. They get, I don't know the latest prices now, the last time I visited Loewe Cement in Austria a couple of months ago, it was between 80 and 90 euros per ton. I don't know if you have different figures, Dirk, I don't know, I'm not sure. But it was somewhere in this range for the calciner fuel. They get gate fee, tipping fee for taking that waste in from a waste processing company who before separated and shredded the waste. But this is for calciner now, 80 euros per ton. The waste company gets around 180 to 200 per ton of whatever waste they take in, let's say MSW or some industrial waste, maybe baled already or so. They still have enough margin to process it and still pay to the cement plant to take part of it and still make a lot of money. And the cement plant has negative costs. But this system worked for over 20 years now, and that's why we have in Austria such an extremely high alternative fuel substitution rate, because the subsidies are just there, the government funding is there, and from that point of view, this is not as easy in the rest of the world. I'm not 100% sure in Germany if it would be similar, if the, let's say also the will of the companies would be as it was in Austria. They all were eager to be environmentally friendly. They still had to look at their profitability. But I come also to the rest now, what Matthias said in the session before, the question, if there was a question if it should be stopped now, talking about carbon capturing later on in the next 6, 7, 8 years when the technologies are there. Let's save the money, don't invest now. I made another presentation. It's much too long for this session here. A couple of weeks ago in Istanbul, that even if you have to pay for alternative fuels, the investment in calciner modification, what Dirk presented before, the investment in new burner, the investment in feeding, storage, whatever system, shredder, whatever, it has an ROI. It always has a return on investment as long as the alternative fuel costs, real costs as fired in the kiln, are below the cost of fossil fuel. I don't know how the prices are now in Saudi Arabia, for instance. Last time I was there before COVID, it was still more or less free of charge or very, very low, the price. So in this case, the feasibility from the economic point of view was not really given. From the environmental point and so on, yes. But as long as oil or gas, petroleum or gas, is cheaper, it will be difficult to make it economic. But as long as in the most countries of the world, the alternative fuel is cheaper than fossil fuel, imported coal, imported gas, whatever, there will be an ROI, and this will not be longer than 5, 6 years maximum in the worst case. So I don't go in details. I have here some slides about quality, which Dirk already showed also a little bit. One interesting part, I go back here, is when you look at the most right picture here, for going for 100% alternative fuel or extremely high rates in the main burner, it's better the shredded fuel looks like this than like this from a cutting shredder. This is just a small slide I wanted to show and make a little bit of advertisement for my company. Otherwise, I'm not talking about my company now. But my main issue is we want to encourage everybody, increase their alternative fuels rate, biomass where it is available, because it is feasible. With carbon credits, it depends again what is the biogenetic part, proportion, fraction. But nevertheless, even if you're just burning pure plastic, there will be a return on investment. But what you must forget is, when you look at this slide, putting at the beginning something in the kiln, somewhere at the kiln riser, maybe a short calciner, it's very easy. You don't need too much quality management. You will have to start poking at some point because you will get some dust deposits. But if you go for high rates, for high substitution rates, you will definitely need a very high competence and a very high quality management in any part of the cement plant. The fuel lab, in the raw materials, homogenization and preparation, in the combustion, the pyroprocessing section, everywhere. So that means the effort also for the operation and the operators is getting to a very high level, and a very high quality management is required. Without experienced people and learning, with a learning curve, you will not be able, no matter what equipment you put in now from begin on. You can put in the best calciner, the biggest 10 seconds calciner with a pyro-rotor, step combustor, not to forget the hot disk, to mention all of them. You can put the best burner in. You will not be able, if not all factors from all quality control, quality assurance are working together, and the operators are ready and learning how to handle this. Otherwise, your operation will be jeopardized by blockages, by instability of the kiln, etc., etc. Even you have the best equipment and best bypass systems. But again, alternative fuels is to reduce CO2 globally, a very important factor, because even if, let's say, only plastic is not creating less CO2 output from the cement plant, it still burns and creates the same like coal or oil will create. A bit cleaner, but still creates it. But if the plastic is used otherwise or disposed otherwise, it will produce CO2 on that side, no matter if it's waste incineration or it's rotting in the disposal site, or if you burn it in the cement plant, this comes together. This is a very old slide we had 30 years ago, these two arrows going together and only one. So don't forget, it's still environmentally positive. And
thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I have to stop you here. You see, this is a subject that is very interesting, and we will certainly later come back to a question to all of the panelists, and to ask for their advice. How could somebody shortcut the 50 years of bloody noses and experience gathered in the European cement industry. How could we make your life easier in jumping into substitution rates? But for now, we've heard about preparation, we've heard about some technical aspects. Now we are very happy to hear it from the perspective of a cement producer. So we are happy to have Damien Rayleigh here in the panel. Damien is somebody who we can really say has learned these things from the very basic, the hard way. He started off as a cement kiln operator in Ireland and has taken over several positions during his tenure. There was a new plant being built in 2000. He overlooked the commissioning there and obviously did it so well that he was then appointed the maintenance manager of that plant and had some other positions, and just recently has been promoted to the managing director of the Mannock plant in Ireland. So congratulations. Damien, we're eager to hear from you how you have tackled an alternative fuel project. Please welcome Damien. All right.
You're all very welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Just to share my journey on the alternative fuels and cement. And I could sit here with these chaps all day talking about alternative fuels and cement, but I won't bore you any longer. So just to tell you a bit about Mannock Cement, we're based in Ireland. Our plant, we have 818 employees, various raw materials, crushing to aircrete blocks. We have aggregates, precast, PR insulation and packaging products and EPS. And I suppose the plant has grown over the time. We have 318 million turnover there last year, and 90 million investment from 2015 to 2022. As you can see, the border runs right through our various manufacturing plants, and with Brexit has created other problems for us, as you're probably all well aware of over the last number of years. We have a moral and ethical obligation to do everything in our power and sphere offset the worst effects of the global crisis we're facing: climate change, biodiversity loss, and the pollution of our environment. And I suppose, as some of our speakers there alluded to, the alternative fuels has posed a way of offsetting some of those. So in 2018, we got in collaboration with FL Smith, those people that built and commissioned our plant back in 2000. And we've worked with them to come up with the new innovation. It's a pyrolyzer, where we take hot meal from stage 4 and we pass it through the loop seal into the reactor, and we pump in SRF. Roughly about 50% of our SRF is put into the pyrolyzer. And we then have the pyrolyzed gas goes into the riser and burdens. 5-minute retention time in the U reactor. We had a small calciner beforehand, and we had to decide on whether to build a larger calciner or go with the FLS innovation. And I can say today, thankfully, we went with the innovation. Big calciner would have posed problems in itself. First off, the cost, and then the maintenance and keeping it clear of build-ups and that. What we found with the Fuel Flex is that we've reduced the build-ups in stage 5. Build-ups we would have had in the past, maybe 15 to 20 ton of hard material that we would have to break out. We've reduced the need for doing a refractory. The pyrolyzer itself is very low maintenance. The guys will do out the aeration and stuff during the shutdown. And by using the pyrolyzer, then we have offset the use of ammonia water. Our NOx limit in Ireland, which would be the same across Europe, is 500 milligrams. We brought down that to roughly about 350 milligrams of normal cubic meters of air, and no need for the 40,000 litres of ammonia water we're using per week. So this was something that was an add-on bonus, as you can say, from the project. We have almost 100% substitution now in the calciner of coal. We use 0.1 of a tonne of coal through our Pfister feeder. We installed a fuel flex from FLS in our Pfister earlier this year, which allows us to go down to this low amount. And I suppose our SRF journey began back in 2014, and next year in January we're putting in a satellite burner to start burning SRF in the kiln. So we had visited some plants there earlier in the year, and like the lads have said here, some of the plants are up at near 100%. Plant that we visited was at 90% substitution using only SRF. So very, very excited about next year, reducing our CO2 further, and hopefully that brings us to about 30% reduction in CO2 by 2030. This is some of the delegates that came from South Korea to visit our pyrolyzer earlier in the year. The FLS project manager, Lars Jensen, we see here. A couple of ugly guys from Manock Cement here on the other end. And it just shows the interest that there is around the world in using alternative fuels to displace fossil fuels. So it can only be good for the environment. So we have a sustainability plan in Manock. This project will be over the next 15 years. We have some wind turbines on the mountain behind the plant, and we're going to use the curtailed wind from that to produce hydrogen. Initially, it's to fuel our mobile fleet, and some of the oxygen then can be used for the kiln, and some speakers earlier talked about oxy-fuel for the kiln. Phase 2 will involve building a wind farm, a 50 megawatt farm. This will produce further hydrogen for the plant, and again the oxy-fuel. Phase 3 and the final part of this journey for the next 15 years, hydrogen displace all our fossil fuels in the kiln, produce some methanol to fuel again some of the machinery and to use on the plant itself. So our alternative fuel journey has been short from 2014. We probably came in at a good time. All the hard lifting was done by a lot of the plants in Europe, and we were fortunate to have it called as a fuel rather than burning a waste. So I would have to highly recommend that our transition from fossil fuel to SRF has been very positive. I would have seen the burning of the SRF just as equal as coal on its impacts on the calciner and that. And like Michael alluded to there, you need experienced people on the plant to watch out for the various parameters that can give you problems. But by and large, it's been a good journey.
Thank you very much, Damien. This was really a remarkable presentation, I have to say, because it shows how to sort of like jumpstart also into high TSR rates with the specific equipment you'll have to put into your plant. And it also shows how this is embedded into an overall CO2 reduction strategy, which you have pointed out in that last slide. So thank you very much. We head on to our last panelist, Mr. Adil Gelsim from CIMAT CIMAF. Also, he is representing more than 25 years of experience and lots of that devoted to alternative fuel usage, but also process optimization of a regional cement producer in northern Africa. And this is specifically interesting because this is a region where this wave-like development of using alternative fuels is now at a peak point. We've been touching this earlier. If you want to go to the very high substitution rates, you need to have the upstream collection systems, pre-processing systems, all that infrastructure, you have to have it in place because you need a safe supply of huge tonnages of pre-processed material to feed a cement kiln continuously. And you cannot go up and down with the alternative fuel firing. So you have to establish a system that is running consistently, and that's why you need an infrastructure upstream. In some developing countries and threshold countries, this collection system and pre-processing system might not be put in place already. And these are very interesting situations because you can create still a large extent of your pre-processing and co-processing strategy. And I guess this is exactly the situation for CIMAT-CIMAF at this moment. I know that there are lots of considerations going on to utilize alternative fuels. And Adil, if you could give a short introductory statement of yourself and how you see things at CIMAT-CIMAF.
Okay, thank you, Matthias. So I am Adil Gezim. I am the Sustainability Manager and Alternative Fuels Manager for CIMAT-CIMAF. So CIMAT, let me start about CIMAT-CIMAF. CIMAT, it's a Moroccan company created in 2007. In 2011, we started our two kilns in two separated cement plants. And 2 years afterwards, we started our alternative fuels activity in 2013, 10 years ago. And we started with the easiest fuel that can be alternative fuel that can be consumed, which is shredded tires. Shredded tires are not available in Morocco. We imported them from Europe. And then we started with about 10% thermal substitution rates. And a few years afterwards, we started our, let's say, pre-processing facilities. And we increased our thermal substitution rates to 35%. Right now, we are at 35% since 2018. And this 35% thermal substitution rate is composed of about 20% shredded tires, about 12% RDF, coming mainly from industrial waste, and also from biomass. As biomass, we use sewage sludge, and we use also olive pomace. So with the problem in Morocco is, as you said, Matthias, that's the supply of alternative fuels. So in Morocco, we are not getting paid to use alternative fuels. We have to pay for for the waste. We have to pay for the waste, and then we have to take in charge the cost of the pre-processing, and all of that has to be at a competitive cost with the petcoke, which is the main fuel used by CIMAT and also by all the industry in Morocco. In Morocco, the average thermal substitution rate for the industry is about 20–22%. But we believe that things are changing. The government is taking in charge this problematic of the waste management, and 1 year ago we have signed an agreement. The cement profession have signed an agreement with the government to produce RDF from municipal waste in about 12 landfills. situated near to our cement plants. And the amount of RDF which will be produced will be about 650,000 tons per year by 2030. We have already facing some problems with the execution of this agreement because landfill, this will increase the costs of the gate fees in the landfills. In Morocco, the gate fee was about 2 euros 10 years ago per ton. Now it's about 10 to 15 euros per ton, which is not bad. But I think that with these cuts, it's not enough to produce RDF. But Moroccan government has accepted to pay subsidiaries for the production of RDF. And there are still some other problems, so to find the land where to put the landfill and convince the communities to pay the increased gate fee, and so we are already late in some projects compared to what was planned. For the sewage sludge, we have experienced some good experience. Because the problematic of the sewage sludge is that it has to be dried. And until, let's say, 1-2 years ago, the sewage sludge was produced, but without being dried, and it was just dumped in the landfills. So in Marrakesh, we have our big treatment station in Morocco, water treatment station, that has invested in a solar drying system. And now with CIMAT signed an agreement with this station, and we are getting the totality of dried sewage sludge, about 16,000 tons per year. And this is for us a good alternative fuel, especially for the impact of the CO2. In CIMAT, we have also launched our CO2 roadmap. CO2 is becoming also in our region a big issue. So now in Africa, for getting the financing for new projects, we need to be state of the art regarding the emissions. We have to prove that we take into consideration the CO2 issue, and to have a roadmap to decrease this CO2 emissions. And I think this is a positive thing that can drive the alternative fuels usage in African countries and Middle East countries. I believe that Morocco can be a good benchmark for countries in these regions, because we are in a transition phase. We were with the zero management of waste, and now we are going to kind of European management of the waste.
All right, thank you very much, Adil. As you see, we've heard now contributions from 4 very experienced alternative fuel proven industrial specialists. And I could imagine that in the audience you would be sitting and asking yourself, how can I get from my 0 or maybe 10% or 5% substitution rate into a good, say, 30 plus as a first step TSR rate, without losing money, without going through all those dips and ditches, without getting all those bloody noses that have been collected by, I guess, all of us throughout the last decades. So I would like to put a question to all of you row by row, and would be interested in your answers. What would you recommend for those sitting in the audience asking themselves, how do I get from 0 to 30%? What is important? Do I have to have everything finely ground, or is that not so much important? Most important is to have the agreements with the municipalities, have the production, the pre-processing line elaborated correctly. Do I should I do it myself or should I search for a partner doing that? So please try to put it in a nutshell. What are the most important tips you would be giving? Maybe, Dirk, you can start.
Yes, it's very difficult to answer. The most important thing is that you have a secured supply of waste. So a long-term contract that secures you the in-feed for any kind of processing to your plant. Secondly, the knowledge. How to introduce alternative fuels into the kiln, the impact on the clinker production, to train your team to be able to use alternative fuels. If your team is not willing to use alternative fuels, you will fail. It's much easier to use natural gas, fine grinded coal or heavy fuel oil. Less hassle. So changing the mindset of your team, involving the team to achieve a high substitution rate to the wealth of the company and to the wealth of the environment, I think it's the most important point. The rest, regarding the technology, you can purchase everywhere. I mean, even here on the conference are the leading suppliers for equipments, and they have the experience and can help you to modify your kilns if necessary.
All right, thank you very much. Next in line, Michael.
I also want to emphasize, I think what I see especially in threshold countries or in East Asia, not talking about Korea now, also China is quite advanced already, but on the threshold, the motivation of the people in the cement plant, including up to the plant managers if it's a big group, not mentioning any names, but the people, as long as they are not forced by their stakeholders, owners, are not really willing to take these headaches because they know with starting that they will have a learning curve and they will have a lot still bloody nose. Even we can help them a lot now to have less bloody noses than we had at this time. So the motivation of the people up to the top management level of the cement factories is very important. They must be behind the idea, number one. Number two, Dirk said it already, you must have a continuous sustainable supply of the fuel. You cannot have 3 weeks alternative fuel there and then go back to coal or petcoke or something like this. It's not possible because you have to adjust your raw material, your ash content, whatever you have there, you must be matching with the raw material that you get your proper moduli, alumina and silica modulus and all these things which are depending on what kind of fuel and ash you put in there. So the motivation is very important, the constant the sustainable supply, no matter if it's biomass or if it's RDF, if it's MSW, can be prepared. And my suggestion is, of course, it will be very difficult just to buy equipment and try by yourself. I think the help of people like we are, and we are suppliers here, is necessary, the consultancy. Maybe having people there for training for longer time on introducing higher quantities. I remember when we started with petcoke in the early 2000s, we had to stay 2-3 months in the cement plant until they got rid of the dust in the kiln and whatever with the high sulfur they had in there and so on. But it's there. We can provide it, and this is peanuts costs, the consultancy fees, in comparison to what you gain from using it. So my thing is also there to come to us. We help you to write equipment for your materials, what is good, what is not good. I'm from a very neutral company, so we can really say this is for your fuel the best technology to be used. And it can be helped by many consultants out here who have experience from our side.
All right, thank you very much. So, Damien, motivation of the team has been mentioned twice. I know you wanted to mention that, but it's over. Find 2 other points.
I suppose I've no invested interest. I'm not a consultant. I'm a person that has used SRF, got help from consultants and whatnot. So if you're going on a journey to a destination, to a place that you don't know the way, first thing you'll either check with somebody that has traveled the journey, or you go to Google Maps. So when it comes to cement, talk to people, ask questions, see what raw materials and a fuel that you have in the locality. And then go out and look for somebody that's compatible with what your vision is for your company. The important thing is to ask. And another thing that people keep talking about is alternative fuels. We don't call petrol, natural gas, coal, any of these alternative fuels. SRF, any of these other fuels that's being used should be called as they are, a fuel. And I think when the operators in the plant on that are looking at an alternative fuel, they think there's something different about it and that it's a harder task. We've seen it in our own plant where people get comfortable with burning the coal. It's easier to burn the coal than SRF, but what I've seen is that SRF burns just as well as the coal. So on your journey, if starting out, even at my stage, 35 years in the business, I've visited plants in the last 12 months to see about how we can burn more alternative fuel, or I should say fuel, in the plant. So that's my bit of wisdom imparted to you, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
All right, thank you. Adil,
Okay.
your 2 picks.
I think having a big and nice energy crisis like the one we had in 2022 and we are still facing could be a good start, because it makes the investment in alternative fuels much easier. Because we can talk about environment, we can talk about the context, everything, it's okay, but if the alternative fuels usage it's not competitive compared to fossil fuels, it will not work, and it will not be consistent in the time. And I think we have to consider this opportunity, this kind of crisis, as opportunities to invest, because in normal times where the fossil fuels are a price low price, it's very difficult to justify and to get the investment. In my speech, I talked about the supply, but I think that the technical points it's very important. I think right now we are at 35%. Since 2018, we are not able to increase our thermal substitution rates more, just because technically we are not able to do it. We have problems with chlorine. Our kilns are not equipped with bypass systems, and we have limitations regarding the residence time in our precalciner. For this reason, so we need investments to do that. We need to invest in bypass. We need to invest in modification of our preheater and our precalciner. And the cost of these investments, it's very high. And we cannot justify it by just an increase of 1 or 2 or 5% thermal substitution rate. So we need 10 to 15%, and the agreement we talked about with our government will give us this opportunity, because with this agreement we plan to achieve by 2030 more than 50% thermal substitution rate, and this rate can justify the investments that we need in our industrial system. So the advice I would say for someone who is building new cement new kiln, just to take into consideration from the beginning in the design, that this kiln has to be able to use the maximum possibility of alternative fuels from the design.
All right, thank you very much. Dirk, I can't hold you back. Please,
Yes,
just short.
just a short remark. I a bit disagree with you, Adil. Yes, financial crisis or increase in fossil fuel prices supports investments in alternative fuels. But remember, always when there is a financial crisis, the cement producers are also affected by the financial crisis. To give you a short idea, 2008 I met with Sean Quinn. You wanted to start in your plant. Not possible. We met first time at the same time, around the same time. It was not possible to invest in alternative fuels. Now the situation has changed. We are not living in a financial crisis. Yes, we have a financial crisis. We have a recession, we have an inflation, whatever. But we have a climate crisis, and the climate crisis is an opportunity. We should see it as an opportunity, and our strategy should be to use the carbon credits which are generated in order to finance and to build the infrastructure to secure a supply of municipal solid waste, any other type of waste, to produce a sustainable fuel to fuel and heat up our kilns.
Dirk, I think there is no real contradiction between the two statements of yours. I think it is clear to see that there's some logic in what you said, utilizing this climate crisis and the instruments coming with it to increase the utilization of alternative fuels. But still, again, an energy crisis, like experienced, also helps setting from the conventional energies to the alternative energies. So I don't think there's a real conflict of statements here. Anyhow, I think, unfortunately, time has flown by as I would have expected. I think what we've achieved here in this session is to give at least a glimpse of what it takes and what is important to embark on a journey towards higher substitution rates. And this is very important because alternative fuels utilization is maybe the most elegant lever on our way towards decarbonization, which saves on operation costs at the same time. And as Roland said this morning, there should be a no-brainer to decide to embark on that journey because it reduces your operational costs and it reduces your carbon footprint at the same time. So let's give a big thank you for our panelists.